A personal brand can help build trust, showcase expertise, and thought leadership. All of that is communicated through your brand story. In simple terms, your brand story is basically your story and that of your business or practice as it is perceived by your audience or potential clients. It is basically the emotional based narrative of how your expertise, your products or services improves the lives of your customers. And this is what we are talking about on this week's episode of Let's Make Waves. It's an action packed episode. My guest, Reme Mancera, is a personal brand strategist specialized in helping her clients strategically share their story to make their offering stand out. She has developed the Story Connectors framework to identify 10 moments in someone's journey that they can share to highlight 10 key factors of what they sell. That way, they can gain their audience's attention, trust, and hopefully intention to buy. Reme is from Spain and works globally with course creators, coaches, and service providers, especially those who are going through some kind of transition in their business. Recently, Reme launched her new podcast called Who Cares About My Story? It's an interview show to inspire others about how sharing your personal brand story can impact your business. Because as she likes to emphasize, your story is relevant and is worth telling. Now, get your notepads and pens. Reme drops gems in this episode, and I really hope you enjoy tuning in. This is Let's Make Waves podcast. I'm your host, Rana Al-Basri Marwan, and I believe that we're all here to make waves. I created this podcast to help you build your brand by sharing with you tools, resources, and strategies to gain professional authority for better business opportunities. If you want to get unstuck, you've come to the right place. Let's get started. Reme, I have a question for you. So this is a question that I get asked a lot, and I'm sure you at the same time. And it's, why is it so important to have storytelling when it comes to building a brand story? Like, why is storytelling so important?
So the first idea that I want to share is how for each of us, when someone is sharing data, we might get it or not. When someone is sharing a story and then adding to that story some data, it's going to be easier for us to pick our attention, to understand the idea, and to pick that, like make it stand out somehow. So it's going to make our attention and we are going to trust that person more. We are knowing them better. So stories are a tool for us to share our ideas. And in the case of personal brand as a business, to share the information about our services, our offers, what makes us different from someone else, from other solutions that can be out there.
Yeah, I agree with you. But then the next question which usually comes after the explanation like that is, okay, but I have, my business has a story. Why is it so important in this, strategically for me to have a brand story, a personal brand story?
Yeah, I always say that there are more people and more businesses offering similar services or similar solutions that what you offer. There are no one else with your same life path, and that's the point of connection. And I always try to explain how by sharing your story you are bringing three elements. Like there is connection, so people see you as someone trustworthy. There are context, there are contrast. So
Contrast.
yeah, exactly. So context, connection, and contrast. And each of those are showing how you are someone trustworthy, relatable, and unique.
Yeah, I mean, you have that even on your website. I have a note of it because I loved what you said. You said you don't need a Hollywood tale. You just need to explore your own journey with a new angle. This is the power of sharing your story. It provides context, showing how you are someone trustworthy. It provides connection, showing how you are someone relatable, and it provides contrast, showing how you are someone unique. It's very clear, but somehow there's a lot of pitfalls. From different backgrounds, different industries. There are usually pitfalls where people always fall when it comes to building their brand story. Although your explanation and the talk about it, it makes it simple and clear. Why is that?
Yeah, I believe first people think that their stories are not epic enough for
Mm,
sharing it. And then the second thought is that who will care about their stories, why they are relevant for their audiences and for the offerings that they are bringing. And it's so important to me to focus on the strategic part, because when you know why you are sharing your story, you will do it confidently, and you there is a sense, there is a why, there is a reason why you're sharing it, so it makes sense. Because for some people, maybe they have getting this information like all the shoots in business, right? Like
yeah,
you should use storytelling, and they are okay, I will share this, but they are not certain about why they are doing that. So they are doing it can feel how it's not something that they are okay, I am doing this because this is providing value to my audience. They will understand better my journey. They will see how I was in their shoes, or somehow I was connected to that problem. I have this experience, and how even if you have done things that are totally unrelated, how each of those experiences has helped you, and it's like building who you are. And then it's going to convey your values, what is important to you, how you approach your work. All of those elements will highlight how you are someone unique. And as you said, in this kind of context, it's so important that people can see who we are, and then they can decide, because it's not about they are going to say yes to my solution. No, it's just they have the information to make a better decision. And that's what we would like to.
of course, of course. And this is where you find, I mean, you deal with service providers. So you have clients such as coaches, consultants, course creators. So what are the common mistakes on repeat you see with your clients?
So the first I would say is the lack of strategy. As I
Mm,
mentioned, people think that they don't see the point of why they should share their story, and they are just doing, but without a plan. They are not connecting the elements of their story that they are sharing with their offering, or with the main values that they are bringing to the table. So being strategic and thinking about, okay, who is your audience? That's my first question when I start working on personal brand story is, okay, who is your audience? What are you offering to them?
mm.
Then with that information, we are going to explore your journey and decide, okay, this element of your story is connected to this key factor of, for example, who is your audience, or why you have a specific format for this solution. So first will be focus on who are you talking to, because then the message will be different. You are not talking to the same story. And I like to use this sample where, let's say there is a doctor, she has made some surgery, and she has just sharing that story about how happy she is because things went really well, to the patient, to
Mm.
her colleagues, or to her daughter when she arrives home. She's going to share the same story totally different ways.
Of
The
course,
same
yeah.
the same for us, right? If we are talking to different audiences to highlight different offerings, that's the point. We need to have in mind to who we are talking to. That will be the main big. mistake.
Yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you. And it's so funny. On a side note about really knowing your audience, the amount of messages, from my podcast, of telling me, would you please stop telling us to define the audience? Almost every episode you have, one of the steps, please define your audience. But it's counterintuitive, when people think that by really niching, you're actually growing your customer base.
Yeah, it's like simplify to amplify. So
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. I love you said that. So you said also, and this is to go back on your point, you don't need a Hollywood tale. You just need to explore your journey. And you've just told us how your journey will actually help. And, when you identify those touch points where this will make sense for the target audience, this will make sense in this element of your offering and all of that. I mean, and I'm sure you've heard this, you might have people who say, yeah, I mean, I was a person who really struggled with my health and I lost a certain amount of weight, and therefore this is the story of me becoming a personal trainer. Sure, there is a a tail over there, but you'll also have people, service providers, who say, I'm an accountant, I do have 20 years experience, I have all of these certifications, I've worked with all of these companies, I don't have a story, I have a CV. But you think that's wrong. Everybody has a story.
yes.
Please tell us. Yeah.
So this is something, especially for these kind of professions, when you need to go a bit beyond the obvious.
Mm,
So you need to be more creative in
mm,
this approach, because again, that person maybe loves numbers. So maybe when they were a child, they were super good at math. Or let's say another person is like an accountant, and in their family, num- um, financially there were some problems, so they struggle. So they decided, okay, I am not having the same experience, I am going to be focusing on how to do my financials better. So they got into accounting somehow, and they started their career there. Or there could be so many different stories about how that person go to that point. And then also, which is the audience, because maybe they are focusing on helping. I had a client that she was accountant for body workers. So
mm.
she was just working with them. Why? Because she started as a body worker, has a big problem with tax authorities, and then it's like, okay, I need to learn more about this. She got into accounting, and then she was teaching others how to do their accounting. And she was focusing specifically in one group of people. So, and I always like also to look for experiences and other parts of your story that are unrelated. Let's say that person was an accountant, but before that, when they were studying, they was working in a supermarket, and
Mm.
then there they learned how for small business owners the approach for accounting should be different than these macroeconomic things that they learn when studying. So every one of us has little stories that could help us to share who we are, why it's important for us to help specific group of people, why we are focusing on specific solutions in a certain way. And even if it's totally unrelated and looks like there are not reasons, there are always some reason why you are staying in that specific work and you are not jumping to something else. And I love when working with my clients, when we are exploring their journey, there is always this thread, and always there is something when you were a child that is showing how you love numbers, or you have a strategic way of think, or you are so creative, or you love reading, or whatever. So there are always something that is related to what you do now usually, And there are different parts of your story, your journey, that will make sense to share. It's not just, yes, I was an accountant and then I don't have a story. Yeah, you have little stories that could help you to convey why this is important to you.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. Thank you so much for the examples. So from a strategic level, because you started off by saying when we neglect really doubling down on building that brand story, we're on a strategic level doing ourselves a disservice and of course our business. On a strategic level, the exercise of going through the previous experience and current experience and trying to find those connections, other than identifying and really knowing our target audience, are there other strategic um, 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 results from the exercise? Could it be, for example, unique selling proposition? That is also something that that the exercise of building the brand story will help us. How do you find the brand voice, like your voice, when you're building the brand story?
Yeah, so that is like, okay, the foundations of your personal brand, right? And it's so important that you have clarity on what is the message that you want to convey. Again, we go back to who is our audience, but also what is the problem that we are trying to help, and then what is the solution that we have.
Mhm.
And the fourth, I always say like four questions: who do you help? What is their problem? How do you help them? And then what makes you unique? What makes you different? And in that answer, your story is a incredible asset to use. That's why when you are working on your foundations and then um, you are not building your story is there. You are like defining it and learning how to share it. So using your story in a strategic way for highlighting what makes you different. So to me, it's really important to use your story in that way. And for some people, sometimes they are a bit like hesitant about the word strategy, because they might think that then you are faking things. You are not faking anything. It's just your real story is yourself, but you can decide what to highlight. That's why it's so important to explore, be open to it. And then about your when you are defining your USP, think about three questions, like why this, why you, and why now. If you cover all these three questions, you will have a good foundation for your messaging. And then you can have, when you have your messaging, you can have your story and combine both and use your story to highlight the message that you want to convey.
I love that. Why this? Why you? Why now? Can you give us an example? You could be the example. Like why this? Why you? Why now?
Okay. So, why this is what we are talking about,
Mm.
why it's important to work on your personal brand story, and how your story can be one incredible asset to use in your business to highlight and to make your offer stand out, right? Why you? So why me? I am passionate about stories. I am good at connecting concepts. So when exploring the journey with my clients, I am asking them questions, and then at some point they share something like randomly, accidentally, and then to me it's like, whoa, wait, here, this is a connection to me in my mind. I have an example about that. If you want, we can go through that.
Yes, please.
And and then yeah, so I'm good at that. And why now? Because you are missing the opportunity when you are not making your message more clear. And it's not about just your business, because you are not helping your business or helping yourself as a person. It's also about the audience that you are helping. Because for everyone that I know, they are making a business for making a living and living good and having their lifestyle, but they have also this purpose. They are specifically trying to help a group of people. They are trying to do something good. It's not just about the business itself, it's also about the consequences in other people. And if they have a problem, you are helping them to solve it. If they have a desire, you are helping them to get and to achieve those dreams. So there is always this, I call it inner why and outside why.
Yes.
Why the reasons why you do something. So it's not just internally something, but also the good that you want to like somehow spread, right?
Absolutely, I agree with you. So, if we go back to the brand story, you mentioned that there is the foundation, which is the foundation of it all. It included the customer, your target audience. Who are they? It included, of course, your offering. What exactly is are you giving that would move the needle for them? Will get them from the point where they are to where they should be or want to be. And there is you as the expert matter, the service provider, be it your story or your credentials. But I also wanted to ask you, now that we have the foundation, what are the main building blocks of any brand story?
Mm. The way that I work with brand story, I don't work with one big story.
Mm,
I work with story connectors, and there are 10 of them. So, in my way of working, I am just helping you to find these little stories, little moments that are going to help you to highlight a specific key factor. That way, when you have your 10 stories, you can choose one to share it separately, or you can combine several of them and putting together more the what is more common known as your brand
brand
story.
story, yes.
Yeah. So that way is less overwhelming. And this coming from my own point of view when I was thinking of my own story and how I am going to share it. And I was listening how, yeah, you should use storytelling. And that was like a big word for me. And I was not sure how I don't have an epic story. I was not sure about what should I share and all that. So, and I, over the time with work with clients on my audience, I know how other people are feeling the same way. And that's why this framework is made thinking of that situation when you get overwhelmed by the idea of having to share a big story, epic story, and you are not certain how to do it. Let's split it in little blocks. And
Mm.
then I have one of my clients, she said how she used them as building blocks. So she has all these story connectors, and then she's combining them in different ways depending on where she's talking to. Also, she has like two different audiences, so she's combining in depending where she's talking and who is the people that she's talking to.
So, how do you use the different that your brand story? How do you use it on the different brand touch points for the customer? Because you're as a service provider, you might use one, two, maybe more um, um, outlets when it comes to putting out your message. You will have a home, which is your website. It could be an office space. It could be another touch point. And of course, you have the networking and you have access to the customers or to people in your industry. Um, is it also through these different versions or sections of the story that you use it for different touch points? Or is it something that is more of a holistic, you use it, or is it based on the customer requirement on that touch point? How do you define it?
Yeah, so in my mind, it's not so rigid. So you have this library of stories, and then depending on what you want to highlight, you are choosing one or the other. For example, let's say you are in a sales call and then you have an objection that you are identifying how this person has a certain fear. So you can just talk about how you will address that, or you can bring one of your story connectors and use it as a bridge to talk about that benefit.
Mm.
So it's not that one of your story connectors will be the one that you use in sales calls. Is that you have the 10 of them and you can use them as you need at the moment. So it's kind of a tool set more than one is specifically for another, for a specific situation. And something that I am doing a lot of research and I am really enjoying is collecting creative ways to use your story.
Please tell us
Uh,
more about that.
because of course you will think that, yeah, I need my story for my about me page.
Of
Yeah,
course, we all do.
that's like kind of obvious. But then also, if you are creating content, let's say you are having a newsletter or creating content for social media, yeah, your story will be useful there. But then also, I have seen how people use it in, let's say you are doing some podcast pitching, and in your email you are sharing a specific story that makes sense for the host and makes sense for the audience of this program. So by sharing a specific story there will make your email stand out already. So
Mm.
it's going to check your application form with different eyes, just because you share already a story that can be interesting for them. So it's also, I have seen how people can use it in the photo shoots. So we want to look professionals and that we know our expertise, and we have abilities to help others. But what about including elements that are representing your story connectors in your pictures? That way they will look different, they will stand out, and most importantly, they will be a conversation starter. And as a personal brand, that's one of the main things that you want. You want your audience talking to you, start a conversation with you, and then you can start like building that real connection with them. And through that, you can learn about their needs and then offering how you can help them.
Oh my God, I love that, to unpack it because you gave so much in that response. I want to really, stand for a bit on the point that you said because it's gold. Your story is not static, it's not a package. And this is what I think a lot of entrepreneurs or even thought leaders, we have our brand story, and it has a bit of the past, but it's connected to what we're delivering right now, so it's not really fleshed out properly. And we use it where we the typical classic ways, our bio, our on social media, we use it on the about page, as you've mentioned. But the story is much more than that, because it's those bits and pieces of it that kind of gives the your personal brand a more human element, right? So we're
Yeah.
kind of humanizing the brand and also the experience with the target audience. So I wanted to really stop on that point about the brand story not being static, and I really thank you for saying that. One of the points of it not being static is that a brand store, that means your the different the different connectors or the different parts of your story, it really helps in the engagement. You've given an example of sending emails and newsletters. It could be in an interview, you can say something
Yeah.
from your brand story. It could be so many, there's so many ways you can do. Can it also, your brand story, leverage building not only a connection with your target audience or your customer, but also can it leverage building brand loyalty,
Yeah.
and maybe, which is the ultimate aim of any entrepreneur, brand advocacy? Can it go there? Can it reach to that? Can a brand story help there?
Yeah, there is an example that I would like to share here, because this one of the mistakes that I didn't mention, but is something also that is usually a problem is the lack of boundaries. So when
Mm.
people has they have this feeling of being forced to overshare, and
Oh, good point. Yes.
and I always it's something that I am really focusing on share how you are the one deciding the level of detail and keeping your privacy as the level that you are comfortable with. So in this case, there were some one person. She's educator of like parenting education, right? And she has a big issue in when she was a teenager around bullying, her own experience. But social media, she's not sharing almost anything about that. Maybe a little mention, almost anything about that. She's just focusing on other topics, teaching others and that. But she's not sharing her own story. Then in her newsletter, like a level closer to
Mm.
people that follow her, she's sharing a little bit. And then from she has a program and she has an onboarding there and have email to go through the process and all that. There, she's sharing more. Why? Because that story is helping her first to make them understand that she was in that process, so she knew from the other side. Then also is creating this safe space because she's sharing vulnerability from her. They know that she's not sharing that any in other places. So it's like, this is a special place. I'm sharing this with you because this is a safe space. And then at the same time, they are allowed to share vulnerable things with her because it's a safe space, right? So by doing that, it's like when you know someone, you are not sharing your most private things with someone that you just know. But when
Mm.
you get more friends and you get closer to them, you are sharing a bit more. And then when you are super friends, close friends, you are sharing all details, all the emotions that you live through that thought times. You are sharing your experience, the emotions, and the lessons that you learn. So by saying that, what I mean is that you, through how deep in your details are going in your story, you are helping them to feel how they are more important to you. You are like in a closer relationship now, and it that's also shows how they are special. You take care of them, and that's it is going to be a loyalty. It's going to show how you care about them and you are helping them to figure it out how here they can share that. So this is just an example. I don't know if I answer your
No,
question.
no, no. It's a brilliant example because, and then when they see the results, that's where the advocacy starts, and then we
Yeah.
go on. Absolutely. On the point of vulnerability, many entrepreneurs they shy away from being. They use the full potential of social media, and social media including not just the social part of the social media, but even the professional social platforms such as LinkedIn. So one of the main reasons, and you hear that on repeat, is vulnerability. I don't want to be, I'm not that kind of a person. How important and to what extent there should be vulnerability?
In my opinion, um, you should decide your boundaries
Mm,
and how you feel comfortable and where, because there's a space where you are challenging yourself because you know that you are going to grow, and then you are like pushing yourself a bit. And there are things where it's not just that, it's going beyond where you want to, and that's not good for you. In my opinion, you need to be ready in some way to for doing that step, to taking that step, right? So what I like to approach, how I like to approach this, you can be vulnerable by sharing lessons where you were not right, and then you learn something, and then how that has helped you. So it doesn't need to be related specifically to private um, tough times. It can be also related to things that were unexpected, that even sometimes what looks like something good from outside, you need to process that, and for you can be challenging. So to me, the vulnerability could go through sharing emotions and sharing lessons importance to you. And it doesn't need to be about the level of privacy of the story. It's, to me, there is vulnerability just by sharing my emotions.
Mm.
So it's not that much about the details of the moment, but how I went through that and the lessons that I got from there. And sometimes when we got something wrong, sharing that could be really helpful for starting a conversation with someone, and open this possibility of change.
Mm.
Like, you can be wrong, and then you decide, you learn, you grow, you evolve, and that's okay. And sharing your own experiences through that doesn't need to be this big epic life pivotal moment. It could be also in the more mundane things, but
Mm.
still the lessons could be there. And that's what I always like to highlight. Put the focus on the lessons and the emotions, because the details are less important.
I
And
agree with you. I agree with you completely. And I really want to put that on a point, for all of our friends on this podcast, whether they're watching or they're going to be listening to us. Um, the I'm really happy we're opening about vulnerability, because especially in the last few years there's a lot of talk about it, and there's a huge advantage about being some sort of vulnerability within the brand story or within certain interactions when it comes to with your customer or with your clients. The purpose of us discussing it over here, it's because so many, they want to DIY their brand story themselves. So I hope you're taking note of all of the tips that Remy is giving. But when you're working with a brand strategist, usually the brand strategist will go and, when you're having the initial brainstorming, and you can tell us, Remy, when, during the initial brainstorming, people talk about a lot of things. And this is where, as a brand strategist, you say, okay, let's look at that story. We don't need to go that deep. This is where we need to start taking the lessons and the emotions, but it doesn't have to be in full detail and crossing certain boundaries.
mm, this is interesting because usually is the opposite way. In my with the people that I work with, I don't know, maybe I attract certain kind of people, right?
Yeah.
And is usually we are touching topics that are big, that they are important to them, but one of the story connectors, the type, is related to your pivotal moment in your
Mm.
life, biggest pivotal moment. And sometimes that's related to things that they don't want to share, and it's okay, they don't need to. But I always like to go through that and talk to them about those, because even if you don't share externally, it's important for you to understand what is the weight of that in your story, in your business, in the way that you run your business. I have a client, she was in a moment going through a separation with their partner and then went back. So that was a pivotal moment for her. But she doesn't want to share about that.
Mm.
And it's okay. But we were exploring the lessons that she got from there, because those were useful, and how she approached that situation is connected to the way that she approached her work.
Mm.
So even if she's not going to share, she has now information that can be useful for her to share it, or to, how to say this, so you have clarity on something, even if you are not sharing, that's important to you, so you
Absolutely.
own your place and your values, and you understand better why you do certain things. So
Yes.
I always like to go through all the journey, and then even if they decide to not share, it's about themselves being aware that that was a moment that is important
Exactly.
to
Exactly,
their.
exactly. And this is where the, as I said, as a strategist, this is what you do. You say, okay, let's unpack it, but then we need to take the lessons and the learned. And, this is really, really, really interesting about, the example that you said in terms of sometimes it's understanding, really your journey as a person will make you articulate your story. Okay. You're not going to talk about every single detail in your journey, but it will help you or guide you to articulate your story because you have clarity and you see the connection. Am I right? Am I with you on the same wavelength?
Yeah, absolutely. And I work with a lot of people that they are somehow going through a transition in their businesses. Sometimes they are changing their niche or they are starting a new business line. So for some people, when they are pivoting, somehow they feel that they need to start talking about the new thing, but forget about the
Whole
old
thing. Yeah.
one and not sharing about that. And it's a way of, okay, this previous thing has helped you to move to this moment. It's an evolution and it's not disconnected. Everything
Mm.
has a connection, and there are lessons that are important for that make your point of view different, more rich than someone else that has a different experience. Or yeah, there is a better understanding of your audience. There are information there that is important, and it will help you to connect with your audience. So sometimes for them it's kind of understanding themselves, like, okay,
Yes.
yeah, it makes sense. I was there and now I'm jumping to this. It looks like disconnected, but there is reasons, and there is a path, and it's kind of helping them to also see this path that when we are immersed in our own stories, it's not
Yes.
that easy to see.
It's not that easy. It's not that clear, to
Yeah.
see. Yeah, I really like what you just said. And I wanna, like take it from a point that you've mentioned, which is the pivoting, you know. When we're pivoting, it's not opening a new book. You're just opening a new chapter in your life. So how does how does the brand story evolve into this new pivot? You mentioned the bridge, so that means do we summarize certain things and then we kind of start adding to it, or just choose few points and then create the new brand story in a pivot?
Hmm.
what do
It
you
dep-
what do you see?
So I had a client. She was a nutritionist,
Mm,
specialized in helping women with some health problems, and she evolved because she had that problem. And first, she focused on the food. In her own journey, she
mm,
focused on the food. That's how she became a nutritionist. But
yeah.
after that, she keep exploring, keep learning, keep searching, and found out that she want to go to the root. So she would like a more holistic approach. So she keep getting trained in different therapies and things. So now she's not a nutritionist; she's a life coach with different therapies. It looks like from outside, if you just said both of the things is disconnected. But when we were talking and exploring her journey, everything makes sense. It's like you are not trying to help someone else. It's the same person, but you want to go to deeper.
Mm,
So you want to help them in the roots, not just in the symptoms. So it makes sense. So for her, it was connected. So it's like an evolution of that story. It usually is good to refresh. So think about, in the way that I do the 10 story connectors. So you have a base, and then some of those will be the same, but maybe the key factor that you highlight is a bit different.
mm,
So you use the same story but highlight something slightly different. For example, in her case, when it was about how she started because she had that problem, she's using that, but now she's also explaining how she went deep because she saw how it's not just the symptoms, she needs to go to the root and all that. So it could be the same moment, the approach could be a bit
Could be
different.
different. Yeah, I agree
Yeah.
with you. Okay, so let's say there's no pivot, but
Hmm.
there's growth in the business, and with y- everything being digital, you have access to a bigger market. So if someone was in a business where the services are kind of the same, but you're entering new markets, you're giving access to your services to new countries that have a little bit of a difference in terms of cultural differences. um how can the brand does the brand story change, or there's a version, a cultural version? Like, what do they do in that case?
Yeah, in this case, what I would suggest is first learn about, okay, the stories that you are sharing. There could be some cultural difference in the way that they will receive that. So, do you want to maybe think about how you are sharing those? It could be the same story again. The
Mm,
level of detail, the approach could be different, but you can still refer to the same moment. So, my focus, as always, is in the lessons, is in the emotions. So, that will be something universal because it's like emotional uh, feelings. That's something that everyone knows. And I love to work with people from all over the world. So that's interesting. Also, how there are similar kind of stories, things that are important to us. And then there are like the cultural difference in how we do traditions or food or things like that. But the inner thing that move us and the feelings and that big emotions, they are so similar
they
over
are. I agree.
the yeah.
I love that. I want to talk more about you. You have something amazing called it's a framework that you've created, and this is the process of building a brand story that you've used on repeat on your clients, your global clients, and they come from different backgrounds. You have the story connector framework that is 100% you. And what you're doing is that recently you've launched two cool projects. One of them is your podcast, which is Who Cares About My Story. It's an interview show, to inspire others about how sharing the personal brand story can impact the business. And I also like this other project that you're doing, which is 30 days and 30 examples of story connectors. Can you tell us more? Let's start with the 30 days. This
Okay.
is I love this project, and your examples are all real life examples from clients or yourself, but mostly from clients, and it makes sense. And it's actually when I'm gonna put a link. Whoever is listening and watching, I'm gonna put a link. You're gonna go watch them. You're still in the middle of the 30 days, so you can
Yes.
catch up. You need to binge watch the first 15 episodes or something. Um, but what's really amazing is that when you give the example on a sales, if you're a salesperson or you're a marketing person, this sells. Your product is going to sell if you mention it. So can you tell us more about the 30 days and 30 example project?
Yeah, this has several reasons why I
Yeah.
started.
Please.
So, since I am very strategic, I wanted to have more examples in my mind because when I went to networking and interviews and things like that, I always came with the same samples. And I was like, I have so many samples from different clients. I need to have my own library of different examples. The best way, practicing sharing it. I have now in my mind all these examples and it's easy to collect them. So that was my first reason for like selfish reasons for my
It's
business,
okay.
which
Your
is okay.
selfish reasons is helping us. So I'm
Yeah.
happy with that.
So the second big thing was how I saw every time I share a specific example people will understand a bit better what I mean with the story connectors, because in my mind it's clear, but then people are thinking of this big one piece of story and it's a different approach. So, and it's always connected to one specific key element. So it's easier to understand with the sample. So I want to illustrate and have all these out there. Also, the third reason is for people that they might not work with me, but I am sharing ideas, questions to ask, and tips to how to do for yourself. In the idea of I am sharing this sample and I am explaining why this is relevant, and I am giving to you a couple of questions that you can think about in your own case, because then it's something valuable in themselves. You don't need to go back to me. Just with thinking about that, maybe you have a new piece of content, or you are just inspired to think about your own case and how you can approach this. So I think that itself is so valuable in the terms of, yeah, I want people to start thinking about how, if they haven't, how sharing their story is relevant and what I mean with that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And on that note, it's also important for people to understand that your story evolves, even if you're still
Yes.
in your business, even if
Yes.
you're still doing what you're doing. My story, for example, evolved when I became a mother. And then it evolved even more because I reallocated and I moved to the other side of the planet. And then it evolved even more when I did some important projects for certain clients. And then I thought, oh my God, why don't we talk about this even more? And I was like, I need to highlight that. So it could be for many reasons. It doesn't also always have to be something that is part of your personal life. Like, for
Yeah.
example, being a mother or, changing location or countries or everything. It could also be something that it is open. It opens your eyes through your clients, through your business, and you're like,
Yes.
of course, let's add this, let's do that. And there is a reason why we add this. So I'm going to put the link for the 30 days. Fantastic, definitely. Tell us more about Who Cares About My Story podcast.
Yeah. This is an idea that I have had for so long. I want the project to be sustainable and consistent. So I was waiting for the moment that I was ready and I have the capacity to do it. And to me, when you start looking at how you are going to share your story and you see other people, they see so confident sharing, and it's like, yeah, maybe they are like that. For them it's natural, it's something that just came easy for them. And but I knew somehow that, yeah, probably they, even those super confident people, at some point they were asking themselves what to share, what not, how this is relevant for my audience, for my business, and all that questions. So I want to create space where I invite amazing people to share their stories and how sharing their stories has impacted the business, but also having this behind the scenes conversation of the challenges and the unexpected things that they need to face when starting sharing, or maybe when you have been in business for a while and then you change or you pivot or you have some transition. Again, you need to refresh your way of sharing your story. So I am really interested, and I am loving the experience of having these conversations, because it's showing me how there is a process for each of us. And the first time that you share your story, maybe you are not so confident, you don't convey all the things that you would like to, but then practicing, you are used to, you even through the way of sharing it, you are getting new angles and learning new things
Mm.
just by sharing, and realizing like, wow, I haven't thought about this in this way. So this was one big thing for me. And the second thing for this podcast is about how there are so much conversations going on about a certain way of making business, and it looks like there's just one way of doing business. And I am amazed. I love networking. I do a lot of connection calls. That's how we
Yes,
cross
yes.
paths. um, and in each of those, I am just learning from different amazing people how they run their business and how they found their path and they try different things. And it's not a one size fits all formula.
No.
Each of the people are sharing different ways. And I wanted to bring that. I want to have diverse voices sharing how they run their business, how they have found their paths, and also how what is your definition of success. And it's not just one. You think about what is important to you and think about what do you want to achieve, what is, and doesn't need to be what mainly in social media or gurus I'm saying. Just listen to yourself. And I want to create this little window where we share alternative ways, creative ways to define what is success. That was
I,
like,
I love it. I love it. And I really, really encourage everybody to go and listen to the episodes that came out, and the stories. As you said, people are, they have different backgrounds and different everything, but somehow the human element of it, and your aspirations and your dreams, and and even your struggles, at the core of it, it's so similar. At the core of it, it's amazing. um Story connectors framework, and I'm sure this framework has is something that you've created because of your extensive experience with service providers, especially course creators or consultants or coaches. But the story connector is a framework that works for anybody, any entrepreneur.
yeah.
So the framework, putting it together, there are key elements of that framework, and you feel like going through the framework is very important. But if certain points are not touched, then it's not really, you're not really doing yourself or your story or even your business any justice. Do you communicate that with your clients, and do you feel like there are certain touch points that has to be done when you're building a brand story?
Yeah, usually, in my opinion, is like the one around why you are working with this kind of audience. That's a big one, because when y- when you niche down or when you approach to a certain group, usually there is a reason why you are doing that, and that there is a reflection in a moment of your timeline. So usually that's one big one. And one that is a bit, let's say, more difficult to understand when I work with my clients is the one related to your values, because this is so
Oh,
important to me.
yes, please. Yes,
And
please.
because it's what is important to you, why, how you live your life. So what is moving you, and what are the things that are you stand for, all of that, all those values. Usually there is a reflection of that in your story. So analyzing your path and choosing one of those moments that will highlight that. And for some of my clients, maybe it's freedom. So but freedom is super big. So by
Yeah,
sharing one story, you will illustrate what do you mean, what kind of freedom, what is your mind and in your body when you say freedom. That's why stories can be a good bridge to illustrate all this information that you want to share and
yeah.
convey.
I love that. I love that. Um, you know, I'm really happy that you touched on the point of values. You know, we're coming closer to the end of our chat. I'm really happy that you touched on it, and I think it connects to a point that you said in the beginning of the episode, when you were talking about how there's a foundation, the foundation, so that the story can be built and this and the connectors can be identified. You know, your audience, your offer, the journey, and I believe it's the values also part of that foundation, because it is from there that within the story, other key elements will come out, which is your mission, your the vision that you have for not only for yourself but for this journey that you're taking your customers on. I absolutely, I'm so happy that you mentioned values. It's especially for our listeners who are building their personal brand as professionals, be it in terms of positioning themselves as thought leaders. So it's not just I am a consultant, I do this job. It's, trying to position yourself as a thought leader. Maybe one of your aspirations is in few years you want to publish a book, maybe you want to do a digital course, whatever your plans are. But thought leadership and building that personal brand image, there's a lot of weight that is put on values. So I'm so
Yeah.
happy that you mentioned that. If you have anything to add on values before my last questions, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, and I think that's something also, as a business owner, you want to share who you are and what do you stand for, but also you want to share that to attract people that you will resonate with, because it's going to be easier for you to work with, and you will be happy to have them. So it's also a way to, again, what we said at the beginning, help people to make the decision if you are the right fit or not. So by sharing who you are, by sharing what is important to you, you are doing that. You are helping people to understand what is the person behind this brand, what is the person behind this business, and how I resonate with this person. I feel connected somehow, and I want to learn more about them and about how they approach this, because your values will also affect how you approach your work, and how, if there is, I don't know, for some of my clients, empathy is the big thing. So
Mm,
the way that they are going to run their business is different from someone else that is focusing on what we said before, freedom. Both of them having amazing services and helping people, but the focus is a bit different. And so it's going to also resonate with different kind of people.
absolutely. I love that. Um, I want to ask you, my final question would be on the way forward, the future, AI and chat GPT and all of that good stuff, you know. There's a huge advantage, of course, for a lot of business owners who might find it hard to articulate their brand story, to use technology and to use if whatever is out there, especially in the early stages where budget is an issue and doing things on your own. So I definitely understand that, but I'm sure there's advantages and disadvantages to what's coming next, what is out there. And how do you see the world now? How do you see personal brand, the brand story, in this new dynamics, this new technology that is coming? And it's not new anymore, it's here and very strong. But how do you see more and more entrepreneurs and people who are building their personal brand benefiting, or maybe not, when it comes to what's next?
Yeah, this is an amazing question. And I I know that from all my life, every time that there is a big technology or thing changing, I was here before internet. That was a huge change in life, right? um all of that at the beginning is challenging to understand how is the extension of those. And of course, AI is huge, it's bigger than anything I think in my life. What I think is like more than ever is going to be important to highlight you as a human. And you can use AI as a tool, but that, as you said, you can use it to, maybe if you are not good in words, you can use it to refresh the words that you are using, or you can use for helping you to create content around the things that you are sharing as a personal brand. So I see it as a tool that we can use. And I, in the future, we don't know, because of course this is going to evolve super, yeah, a lot and super fast, because it's AI, right? But I see it as a tool. I have concern because as humans, we can do bad things with good tools.
Yes.
And we have proved that over and over and over. So, but in terms of as a business owner, personal brand, I believe that this is an opportunity to even go farther, showing how human you are.
I love that.
So, because one of the things, if you, this is a big topic, but let's say, for example, when you are trying to create a piece of content using ChatGPT, and it's some cookie cutter, generalistic, vague, and all that, you need to learn the tool to get something with your brand voice and incorporate it in a way that sounds like you. So you need to learn the tool to get the most out of it. So I don't believe also to just say that it's bad. No, I don't know how to use it in a better way. So to me, it's easier to just write something, because
Yeah.
it's more difficult to get my brand voice in this message. So it's also a matter of learning how to use it, if it makes sense. And of course, in our day-to-day lives, we have AI everywhere, and this is going to be more and more. But I would say, just looking at the personal brand story and the business owner side, yeah, double down in being a human being.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I love that. I love that so much. Remy, I don't know how to thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all the amazing tips that you've shared, and thank you for your guidance on explaining in so many great examples and in so many great ways the importance of how this journey of unpacking the brand story, it's a journey that is, this unpacking would help you understanding not only yourself but also the great positive impact that it will have on your messaging across the board, because it all comes from the brand story. I don't know how to thank you enough. And I hope that you'll be a recurring guest on Let's Make Waves. But thank you so much again for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am happy to have this conversation with you, and just to share that idea that your story is relevant and worth telling.
Thank you. Definitely it is. Thank you so much. Bye.